Hi everyone, welcome to the webcast. I will introduce today our speaker. Our first speaker is Rob Wiseman, Director KLM Accounting. Then we will have Monica Kowos-Lembas from Lufthansa, that is Senior Process Architect. And then we'll have Azadeh Korestani, and then finally myself, Bruno. So I will give the hand to Rob that will start to introduce the call. Rob?
Okay. Thank you, Bruno. Welcome everybody in this SIS webinar. I'm aware that for some of us, this is a very convenient time to join this webinar, but for some it's not. So you are late in the evening or quite early in the morning. So thanks very much for joining, and let's get the most out of this session. I will keep this opening word as short as possible. I think when people at the start of 2020 were not very much aware of the economic sensitivity and vulnerability of the airline industry, well, then now they are. I guess there is not one single airline or airline-related supplier in the world which is not experiencing the impact of this worldwide crisis. Revenues are almost declined to zero and costs have to be cut. In some parts of the world, we see some cautious start to recovery and resume some of the operations to a limited number of destinations in very low frequencies. But we all know that it will be definitely be a long and difficult way towards full recovery to levels like before Corona. And against that background, it's good to see IATA take their role and support the members in any way they can. And this webinar is one of the initiatives. With SIS community growing year over year, the airline industry has a strong tool available to optimize their purchase to pay or order to cash processes. And when having this tool available, of course, it's important to use the functionality as much as possible and get the benefits to the maximum. And I trust with this webinar and the expertise of people like Monica, Azadeh, and Bruno, you can make further steps to that goal. Before giving the word to these colleagues, I have some practical remarks. On the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a question box. Just type in your questions and we will address them at the end of the session. And at last, we will also want to let you know that this session is recorded and we will be sending you some supporting documents, including the slides and other resources that will be mentioned during this call. So for now, I'm wishing you a very inspiring and fruitful webinar and give the word to my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. So we start with the agenda. And with the agenda, we'll go through the location ID. That is a feature that is designed to route invoice to a certain person or certain system, depending on how the airline is set up. Then we will give some recommendation how to use the tax on the VAT in the SIS invoice, because we see that there is some change sometimes. We give also an explanation about what is the benefit of the use of the payment status. And you will see that it's a very, very powerful tools that help you to cooperate between supplier and airline and exchange information and reduce a lot of friction. Then Azadeh will lead us through the dispute management process that we are implementing last year, and we continue to improve over time. And we will speak about data quality, because in this process, we have a fully automated system. We have ERP talking to another ERP, so the data quality is key to achieve automation, like if a PO is incorrect, an automatic process will not work. And then we'll end with Q&A. So my first item is about benefit of location ID. It's very important for us because this allows us to meet the airline demand. Every airline has a different setup, has a different organization. Some of them are centralized, some of them are decentralized, and depending on the nature of the costs, is a different team or different people or different systems that are used. So for the location IDs, the main usage are based on geography, meaning that you have an office, let's say in Paris. I'm French, so I will use that example. And you need to have the address of the local office to be put on the invoice. So you will create a location ID specific to Paris. So every of your invoice will contain the correct address, the correct VAT number. Then you could have a process where you want to segregate operation. You may have a local office that need to validate the information, or you may have a group of offices that are in the region that are grouped together. So here you can also use that process to facilitate this segregation of operation. And it also allows you to segregate the access to the data, meaning that a user that will be linked to a specific location ID will only have access to invoice pertaining to a certain location. It could be an airport, it could be a region, or it could be a nature of cost. And the last one is a facilitated process of a centralized system. Is mostly used for people that using a fuel system, people using a catering system, where they want to have a flow of information that is pure in terms of data. And so using these three methods, you can make sure that you can dispatch information as you need and give access to people to the right information at the right place. How you do that, this type of setup? So you go to the member profile, you go to the tab location, you select the location ID you want to use, and here you define that you want to have a specific output file. You have to know also that you could have a copy of this file sent to the office. So despite this is dispatched locally and an email alert is sent to the station manager, for example, still the head office can receive the file and process it automatically in the central system, like for accounting. In this location ID, we had an existing process that was called country default, and that is to say if a supplier is not providing me a location ID in my invoice, because I have set up a location ID in that country and I have defaulted the location ID, what will happen is when the invoice will be sent to me, it will override the main address of the airline and it will put the local address as it is defined in the member profile. But what we have implemented recently, and last May, it was the capacity to do that per supplier. So that means that for each supplier, you can program which location ID could be applied. So it could be the same local address that will be used, but it could generate a different flow. Let's say you have still in Paris, you have a fuel invoice that is coming and you want to element a different system. So you will create a location ID in Paris specific for this type of charge because you want to get XML that is only containing invoice related to fuel. So through this new process, you will be able to do that. How to do the setup? So you move to a member profile, you go to Miscellaneous, you go to a default location for mispayable invoice. This one is for the country specific. But if you want to go to a supplier specific, you go to number 4, and then you will have to select the member and save the save the request. And this will allow you to dispatch as you need in an airline, depending on the system, depending on the people validating, so you can respect a workflow or an internal rules. I will hand over to Monica.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Bruno. Let me share some best practices we do in Lufthansa. So in Lufthansa, so far, we are using the location ID set up by the country and not by the defaulted supplier, which is now available in the new functionality. The new one brings additional benefits that supplier doesn't have to provide location ID on the invoice. However, we must ensure a proper setup in the member profile in SIS platform upfront. Looking forward to try this one. So far, working with location ID for bilateral invoices help us to mitigate the risk of receiving duplicate invoices in central and local company code, as well as correct automatic allocation eliminates manual step for accountants to rebook invoices between various company codes. The correct invoice allocation is a prerequisite for us to apply other automation possibilities for invoice posting process.
Thank you, Monica.
Thank you,
so we'll move to a poll. And the question will be, how can you route an invoice to a specific location ID? And Christine, that is a facilitator today, is opening the poll for you. Thank you, Christine. So you have 3 answers possible. By creating a location ID and asking the supplier to provide it in the invoice, so in the XML input file. By creating and assigning in a country default location ID in the member profile, or by creating and assigning it's a specific supplier default location ID in the member profile, or the last choice is all the above options. So far we have how many people this responded? 19%, 20% people responding, so give it a minute. Okay, a few more seconds. We need 5 more people to vote. Okay, 2 more, 1 more. Okay, Christine, we can close the poll. So the good answer is all the above options. So you can either create a location ID and ask your supplier to provide it. You can also assign it defaulting with a location. You can also do it by a supplier specific. So the good answer is all the above. And we see that 42% of the people get the good answer. So we did a good presentation. Let's move to next subject. So next subject is more a recommendation, and especially for people submitting invoice. This has side effect, because if you don't do it correctly, it gives us a trouble later on when we implement and when we roll out. We mainly saw that when we have a big supplier like an airport that have 1,000 of details attached to one line, and where it trigger rounding issue. And also, as Monica explained, we are preparing the future, because we plan to release in SIS next year a feature to allow the auto coding of invoice, to do the posting automatically in the ledger account based on some parameter. But we want also to do the automatic posting of the tax and the VAT. And this will be a good feature for SIS, because it will help accountant in their line to do the allocation automatically and systematically. So what is our recommendation? So we recommend to use tax and VAT at the level that is applicable. It could be applicable to the full invoice. Then we recommend to use the header level, because if there is one tax treatment for the full invoice, either the invoice is not subject to VAT or is subject to VAT, but there is one rate applying all over the place. So it's very simple. You provide it at the header level. The second option is to provide it at the line item level, because you could have 2 lines in the invoice. The first line could be a service, the second line a goods, and depending on the country, it could be a different VAT for those. So it's quite important to provide it at the right level. And what we want to avoid is to provide it at the line item detail level, because if you do that, we end up with a rounding issue. One of the key aspects is also applicable for discount. Any additional amount or discount that is applicable, we recommend to place it at the line item or header level. Then we have a second poll. What is the recommended level for tax and VAT reporting? So you have 3 choices. Invoice header, or 4 choices: invoice header level or line item level, line item or line item detail level, or only line item detail level. So we see that this question seems easy, because we have a good rating of people voting the right answer. Let's wait to see if it's confirmed. Yeah, we can close the call, Christine, thank you. So the good answer, of course, is invoice header or line item level. Some people are confused with the terminology, so it's, you could have understood right, but choose the wrong answer. So it's very important, because in the future, when we will do the automatic posting on the tax on VAT, it will help to have it at the right level. And all this rounding issue, when you work with an ERP, the system is not always very tolerant to rounding. So it's very key to provide the tax and VAT at the correct level, because he makes the invoice 100% accurate, and it's as expected by the billed party to be received. So I will move to the next item, that is benefit payment status update. So this is a title is a bit misleading, because when we say payment status update, in fact we mean the life cycle of the, to give visibility to the other partner through the system of what happened to the invoice. So it could be a payment, but it could be also a dispute. It could be just the fact that you received the invoice, or it could be just the fact that you saw the invoice online. So it's very useful, and it gives a lot of power to the platform if people use it. So what is solved as an issue? So lack of visibility of an invoice. You don't know if the invoice is received. You don't know if the invoice is due online. So here you can know that. You not always understand what the payment amount. So you see that some suppliers, they are sending a statement of account, and it starts with a month with an amount overdue, and there is invoice that are sent. Then there is on the other side of the statement, there is a payment from the airline, but the payment is not matching any sum of the combination of the invoice. So there is a lot of unclarity between the airline and the supplier, which invoice was paid, was it paid fully, what is paid partially. So it's a benefit for the supplier, because they will see which invoice was paid, but it's also a benefit for the airline, because no one will ask them every month which invoice did you pay, which invoice you didn't pay. At the same time, it's increased the payment reconciliation, because if you're a big supplier, let's say like a plane manufacturer, you're sending 1,000 of invoice to airline every week, and so you get one wire by because the airline do batch, and then you don't know what was paid, what was not paid. So you keep asking your partner, which invoice did you pay, which invoice did you not pay. And then also there is a notion of bank transfer fee. So if I tell you next Friday I will wire you $1 million, and you see that you get close to $1 million, but there is $10 difference, you will know that it was becoming from the wire transfer. So it's also helping you to understand clearly what I intended to send and what to receive, and you can clearly identify that is due to the bank fee. So it's very useful from that aspect also. So what it helps, it reduces interaction. So if you don't need to contact an airline, or if an airline don't need to be contacted to respond, did you receive my invoice, why you pay late, or that, it's very useful. It reduces the information. If I know that the airline received the invoice and still didn't pay, I know that because it's taking more time on their side, but I'm sure it was received. It's not like I'm sending an email and I hope that someone will read it. Here I have a clear view, and I know exactly when the invoice was processed in the system and when it was submitted to the other party. Then increased transparency. As we say, you know exactly in the life cycle of the invoice within the airline, it was received, it was processed, it was validated, it will be sent for payment, it was sent for payment, or it goes to a dispute. And because all that is automated, it goes faster. Next point is it facilitates payment reconciliation. And also sometimes you can also provide the payment status from both sides. So it could be also the airline itself that say, I will pay you that day, but after we expect the supplier to recognize that the invoice was paid. So the invoice is marked as fully paid. So even an airline can look in the system to say which are the invoices that didn't pay. And because the supplier is providing back this information to the system, he can clearly identify which are the invoices that are not paid or paid. And yeah, is exactly what I said. And the other aspect is there is also a systematic and automatic process that is happening. When the system is processing the invoice, it's updating the status, and it's done in real time. And everything that is done through the clearinghouse is also updated automatically. So there is without any party providing payment status, there are still payment status that are provided. So we'll see after who can update the payment status, how you update the payment status, is there any alert, and any other outputs. So what is always in SIS, you can do two things, at least. You can do either in the web, see in the dashboard what is the payment status, or you can receive a file that is compatible with SAP and ARP that could allow you to use SIS as a black box. So to set up this, you need to go to member profile, you need to go to the Miscellaneous tab, and you have to select the daily payment update for payable invoice, and it will allow you to receive the data on real time, and it's a file exchange, so it could be automated on your side, and you can use this as a black box. You can still work from your SAP. You don't need to come to the platform, but still you have the possibility to come to the web interface. And the same, to update the status, you can do it either by a file or you can do it manually through the web interface. So that means despite a supplier or an airline is small, it can still provide this information back to their partner. What's the auto reminder? So we have defined a process because we were saying to people we can mark an invoice as a payment overdue, and someone that was doing the cash collection told us that it's very useful, but it's useless if you don't generate an email automatically. So we have defined a process where we can send an email alert based on payment overdue, and there is some parameters that are set up, and there is default one, and one of them is if an airline did not set up the correct parameter, the super user will be receiving the alert because we were not able to start a process without making sure someone is set up. So the super user will have to do an activity if you don't want to receive the information. And the billing member, he can set up how many alerts. There is a number of alerts that is defined in the member profile, and you can define how many you want to send. It's monthly, so you can define from 1 to 8 for reminders that are sent to the party. To do the setup, you go to Miscellaneous, contact. You search a contact, or you create one if you need one. You will select the contact person. You will see the assignment, and then you will have to activate the feature to the billing category specific, and set up that you want to get an alert about the bilateral payment overdue. So you see that in 6 is billing category specific, so you can trigger a different alert depending on the people that do the validation. Then and then you need to save. And if we go to next page, you have to do also for the billing party to set up reminder. You have to go to Miscellaneous, and then you have to select the number of overdue payment reminder, and the parameter is from 1 to 8. That means that you can decide if you do 8 during 8 months, he will do a reminder. In terms of payment status information, there are many of them, and you see that here is a list of all of them that are applied by you. That means that a user can define this kind of parameter. Some of them are derived by the dispute process. So when you do a dispute of an invoice, the system updates automatically the status of the invoice, and some of them has to be provided by you. Like when you provide an information about the payment, you will give information about what is the wire transfer, what is the date of wire, what is the value of the wire, and which invoice are included in the wire. So we have a clear understanding of when an amount of money is received, what is received inside. And all of them are defining a bit of the life cycle of the invoice. And it could be back and forth. And in SIS, you have an audit trail that lets you know all the information that happened to the invoice at what time, and there is a timestamp for each of the stage. And Monica, your time.
Yeah, thank you, Bruno. Again, some feedback from Lufthansa side. So in information and transparency about the payment status and invoice lifecycle is very important for our suppliers and us. Therefore, having the possibilities to indicate the status via SIS platform can help really to reduce the queries and manual work or follow-ups. We found it useful that both parties can exchange the current status, whether the invoice is in dispute or partially paid. But also we need to consider the level of details we may share, what are our system capability. As mentioned by Bruno, it can be integrated with other systems like SAP, which again reduce manual steps and make the process more efficient. In Lufthansa, we don't use this option yet, but we consider it for future development. So looking forward.
Thank you, Monica. So we move to a poll. And the question is, SIS will send a past due notice email to a missed bilateral invoice to, and the option are to a missed bilateral payment overdue contact. Christine, did you? Yeah. To a missed bilateral payment overdue contact, to a missed payable payment status update contact, or to a missed receivable payment status update contact. So it's a tricky question, but let's see how you're responding. Yeah, again, we have a good result. You're listening. A bit more water. Okay, a few more. Okay, let's go. So the good answer is missed bilateral payment overdue contact, and 43% of you did respond correctly. This is important because if the super user don't do that, he will receive a ton of emails. So it's important that you let the super user know that this feature is existing, and it's clear that he may send you some reminder if you have invoice overdue, but it will help you also to monitor this activity. I will now hand over to Azadeh. Azadeh, it's your time.
Hello.
Hello, we can hear you.
Okay.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, good. Thank you again, everyone, for joining this webinar. As a quick introduction, my name is Azadeh, and I am SIS Operations and Onboarding Manager. In today's session, I'm going to cover SIS dispute management process and the data quality issues topics. Yeah, thank you. There are two fundamental reasons that a dispute can be raised or an invoice is not paid. First, there is an issue with the quality of the product or service that was provided. Second, an issue with missing or incorrect data in the invoice. Here we are focusing on the second reason, which is related to the dispute against an invoice for missing and or incorrect items. Before SIS dispute management functionality was deployed, the entire process of dispute for any discrepancy within a dispute within a miscellaneous bilateral invoice was done outside SIS, probably by using other systems or even by email or mail, fax, etc. So dispute management functionality was designed to standardize the dispute data and process for all SIS members and to enable them to submit and follow up their disputes through SIS. SIS dispute management not only increases visibility to both billing and billed parties about disputed items and dispute reasons, but also it allows to trace item across the entire process from an original invoice to a dispute and finally to a credit note issued to settle that dispute. Also, it speeds up the process by facilitating the communication between both parties and finally makes it easier for both parties to reconcile and settle the disputed amount that they agreed on. There is an important point about dispute reconciliation and settlement, which is unlike a miscellaneous rejection, a miscellaneous dispute has no obligation for payment. It will only be settled if the billing member of the original invoice optionally issues a credit note for the disputed amount after they agree on the disputed items. Now let's take a look at high-level process map of the dispute management. A dispute can be raised by both billing and billed member of a for a discrepancy in an invoice. To keep it simple, in this scenario, the from member of the dispute is the billed member, and the to member of the dispute is the billing member. As the stage 1 of the dispute, the billed member can initiate a dispute against a miscellaneous original invoice through either ISWeb or by uploading a dispute package. After creating a dispute, the user can send the dispute directly to the other party, or the user can optionally request for an internal review to be done within the organization before sending the dispute to the other party. This optional internal review process usually is considered by the first user if it requires a manager or a second user to approve or remark, or sometimes to provide supporting documents related to that dispute. In the second stage of dispute, after the dispute was received by the billing member, the user can reply to the dispute directly or using the optional internal review process, the same way that was explained. Next slide, please. The billing member can accept, partially accept or reject the received dispute. If all or some of the disputed items were accepted or partially accepted, then the billing member can issue a credit note for those disputed items. But also they can reject all or some of the disputed items and send the response back to the billed member. As the next stage of the dispute, if the billed member accepts all items in the previous response received from the billing member, then SIS will close the dispute. But also, billed member can reject all or some of the items in the previous response received from the billing member and send the response back again to them. So as you see, the dispute may go on back and forth between members until an agreement is reached, or one of the parties failed to respond to the dispute within the time limit, and then SIS will automatically close the expired dispute. In the next slide, we can see the time limit for the dispute, which is for bilateral invoices. After 1 day, they will be available for the billed member, and then they can raise a dispute on it. And for the first to stage N, all the replies and all the replies has 6 months, and outside this 6 months time limit, the response is not accepted, and the dispute will be expired. Okay, yeah, we have the poll question now.
So now the question is, how can a member raise a dispute in SIS? So there is 4 options. Upload a dispute input file including dispute items. Raise a request via customer portal in the disputes category. Upload a dispute input file or dispute via login to ISWeb. Dispute an invoice via login to ISWeb and attach the necessary supporting document. So let's see. So here we are more mixed. A few more votes. Let's close it. So you see the answer. The good answer was upload a dispute input file in SIS or login to ISWeb. So we always, and 53% of the people have the right answer. We always do that in SIS. We make it ERP compatible, meaning you can exchange file, or we make it fully manual. If you don't have any system, you can go in SIS and do it manually. So the good answer was upload a dispute file or dispute via login in IceWeb. There is even a third option, that is you can even create yourself a file for the dispute, and we foresee that for cost control system that will be able to generate a file and update SIS to say automatically the invoice was not correct, and this is also available. We move to next item. Azadeh, all yours.
Yeah. Next topic is data quality issues. The reason that we see data quality as a really important subject are three major challenges that many SIS members are, as a build member, are facing. The first challenge is the extra time to reconcile the data. The second challenge is the extra cost. And finally, the challenge of losing trust to correctness and completeness of data captured in SIS by the billing member. Of course, there are some data quality issues are easy to be a spot, like missing value for mandatory fields, duplicated values, wrong formats, miscalculated amounts, timelines, and etc. These issues can be simply identified and trapped by SIS through the built-in validation rules and existing master tables. And as a result, a user will be prevented by system to continue capturing such incorrect data in SIS. However, some issues are difficult to spot. During our data quality process in the past years, we found, please go back to the previous slide, Bruno. We found the data quality issues that usually happen by member, and we categorize them in two categories: data-oriented problems, such as inadequate or incorrect, unclear data, or even using substitution value for mandatory fields. And the second category is supporting document problems, which is usually brings the attention to not alignment of items, not alignment of data, or quality of supporting document. But how to solve this data quality issue? In fact, it needs a collaborative approach between system and SIS members. Next slide, please. The starting point of SIS data quality process usually is when a member notifies us about a problematic invoice or invoices that they receive. In addition, in a regular basis, SIS team analyze and spots the observed data quality issues of invoices captured in SIS. As a next step, we communicate with the data owner to identify the real cause of the issue, which is, we notice that is usually related to the user mistake, misunderstanding or wrong interpretation of SIS standard definitions such as charge category, charge code type, misusing the mandatory recommended fields, and least but not last, using shortcut of attaching supporting document instead of capturing complete invoice data. Then, based on the result of our analysis, we propose possible corrective actions to the data owner, who will be responsible to resolve the issue and prevent it from reoccurring. As a final step, we monitor action. Action was done by the member who is the data owner, and provides more guidance or help if it's required. Of course, as I mentioned before, it needs a collaborative approach to reach a high quality data and to ensure that a captured invoice in SIS is fit for its purpose. Okay, thank you again. Now Monica will share some key points about data quality issues from an airline's perspective.
Thank you, Azadeh. Okay, so as many other airline SIS members, we also exchange invoice information via SIS, IATA clearinghouse, and also receive bilateral invoices. We cooperate with system to improve the invoice data quality, because it is very much in our interest to receive good quality invoice and can further automate the invoice processes. On the slide, we present some examples of errors Lufthansa receives on incoming invoices. All of them requires an extra effort for clarification. I'm addressing those errors today because it is in interest of all of us to have a success in automation invoice process, and the prerequisite for that is a high invoice quality. So these are just a few examples, like incorrect charge code used or incorrect airline invoiced. Attachment are provided outside of SIS, and this is one of the crucial one, because our approvers, if they can't see the attachment, sometimes cannot approve the invoice, and then very much delays the whole invoice payment process. Descriptions of the services isn't precise enough. Very often we need to come back and request more information. ICH invoices aren't as good as bilateral one, and the place of the services differs from the invoice and supporting information. So this is the feedback from Lufthansa, but hope jointly with system we can improve the invoice quality, and we can benefit all from them.
Thank you, Monica. Thank you. So it's very important to get the airline view, because on my IATA side, we just see the people complaining, but we didn't always understand the consequence. And you see that when you have a system that is talking to another system, data quality is key to ensure a good process. So let's move to the poll. So the next last poll is for us: what are the common data quality issues in SIS? And the answer are inadequate, incorrect, or unclear data, non-alignment of item or data, quality of supporting document, or using dummy or substitution value, or the last one is all the above options. So I see that this time there is a very, very strong good rate. Let's wait one more minute or a few seconds. And let's close. So the answer was all the above, and most of the people responded right. So you see that quality issue is coming from different places, and it's very important for us to have a good data quality so you can build automation. And if you have a system that do PO matching and you receive 10,000 of invoice and suddenly none of the PO is matching, no one is equipped to handle it 10,000 invoice manually. When you look for automation, you expect that it's stable, that is over time. And this is also a key aspect that with Azade we are doing with the supplier. When we onboard them, we do a data quality check. At the beginning, we were onboarding people, just letting them pass certification, and then they were moving to production. And now we have included an additional step that makes sure that the supplier is joining. Before they do that, we have connected and we have tested offline with 2 or 3 main customers of this supplier to make sure that not only technically the invoice is correct, but business-wise is matched. So, for example, for Aéroport de Paris or Nice Airport or Finavia, we'll make sure that the data is correct when they go live with every airline. We will make available this presentation. I have another slide to show you that is about the information. So we'll update also the first link for SIS dispute management. But everything we do is always documented. We'll give you information and we'll share the slide. We will move to the Q&A now. And part of the Q&A, I see that one of the questions is to see where I can see the previous webinar video. So this will be made available in the SIS website. And I think all of them will be published, and we will send a SIS bulletin at the end to remind people that they can see and watch the video, and also they can see the slide. It will be 2 separate documents. I have a question from Latam about updating the SIS system. So it's not an obligation to update the payment status. It's not something that it's forced, but it's something useful. You see that when we set up the process of SIS at the origin, it was the idea to, in some aspect, to fight the notion of supplier portal or customer portal. When we started the project, it was airline pushing for supplier portal, where they were pushing their supplier to adopt the process. But for the airline is not always the first one that implement that. It's the winner because it has a full of automation. And then it's the same for the supplier. When the supplier is also pushing for a customer portal, it's forcing the airline to come to a portal. We see that for few airports or some manufacturer, where they say to the airline, you have to come to that portal. So the idea is, instead of everyone having full automation and the other party to be mostly fully manual, the idea was to use a system in the middle that was SIS, and the idea was to replicate more or less the functionality that you will get in a portal. And one of the big benefits you get in the portal is you get visibility of the live status of your invoice, and you know when you will get paid, so it's very useful. So it was the idea to share this information to SIS. So it will be available for the people if they want to use it. I saw a first question about location ID. There is a question about how to make sure the VAT or the tax is correctly reflected. So let me read it a bit. Can you speak of the progress used in location ID by the billing member? In some case, VAT recovery is impacted when billing member use a location ID where the VAT number is not reflected on their invoice. Okay, so you know that in SIS, VAT number is updated in the member profile. So we have to be sure that when you're using a location ID that you have entered the VAT issue. I would imagine that if it's the VAT number of the other party, it will impact the other party reconciliation and information to the government. But from your point of view, it should be sufficient to say that you have collected this invoice, that amount of money. But I'm not a tax expert. Ideally, we should go back to the other airline and to say, look, you should provide it. The VAT number, it's important, and it's also something we made as a legal field, so it's mandatory. And I have a second question about the tax field should be used versus the VAT field. So the notion of tax and VAT, it's quite, for me, it's very simple, but tax is always very complex. A tax is something that you cannot recover. It's something you pay, is like a fee, and is a dead end. You pay for it, is a cost. A VAT is something that you can recover. That means that you have to declare that you pay for it and you can claim it back. And it's only the end user of the service that will pay the VAT. It's not if you are in B2B, the VAT is just a pass-through. So it's a main difference. But in SIS, we let the people choose what they want to use, and we cannot advise on that aspect. And it's very key from that aspect. I have a question about, do we need to require to make any change in the current SIS XML file? No, because now the way we have implemented location ID, you can, a supplier can migrate anywhere in the world without mentioning any location ID. From your side, you can override what they have, what they are providing. So that means even between airlines, if someone wants to apply the specific location ID, they will have to just to program this in the member profile of SIS, and it will allow to happen correctly. It's a question about the invoice alert. It will be available once it was set up by the super user. So it's by default is applicable to everyone. That means that it's an email alert sent to the super user without the airline doing any setup. If we if you want to do a change, then someone has to do the update. The question about will be the same webinar uploaded in YouTube? I'm not sure. I don't know. It will be made available as a link in the SIS website, but I'm not sure we'll put them in YouTube. Can we show tax and VAT only in the header under the line item? So what is important when you apply tax on VAT is to be clearly able to identify to which amount it pertains. If your invoice, there is two lines, and one line is 100, the other line is 50, and you say one tax is at the header level is based on the 100 is 20, and the tax on the other item is 10, you can't do that at the header level because it will be very obvious which line pertains to what. But when it becomes very complex, it's sometimes challenging. But I think the answer to your question will be, I would say yes, as long as we can clearly identify which item was taxed at what level. Let's move to the next question. Alors, regarding list of payment status for both billing and bill member, will this be applied only for bilateral invoice? No, alors, some of them yes, some of them not, because everything about invoice process, invoice delivery, it's regardless of the method of payment. Then for the dispute process is a process for bilateral invoice. So any status linked to the dispute, it's something that will be applicable only for bilateral, and you will get additional status for the ICH one. So that means that for the ICH process, when you want to dispute, you do rejection invoice. So it will be a different process. So the answer is only for bilateral invoice. Let me check the other question. Can we show tax? Okay, I answer this one. Will be in functionality in future where a billing member can only bill fixed charge code, so that error is minimal. Will be a functionality in future where SIS member can only bill fixed charge code. Okay, so I'm not sure I get the answer. The idea in SIS is to codify whatever is possible. So we started with the charge category charge code. We are currently discussing with the ground to have an additional 1200 charge code type. And the idea is to use the charge category charge code type to define a notion of product ID. If you are a supplier and you're selling something to an airline, you have your internal coding for your product ID, and you put that part of the invoice, but it's specific to you. So as an airline, I have to maintain all the product ID for all the services I order in supplier. If I have several suppliers that are providing the same service, their product ID is different. So the idea was to say, instead of using product ID, let's use charge code type. So with that, we know exactly what is the nature of the service, and we know also where the service was delivered, so we can identify this. So if my answer is not covering your point, SIS is always looking for improvement. So we have a list of improvements that are in the pipeline now, and we will add any of new requirement, and it will go to priority. So if I didn't understand well your point, just send us an email. Thank you for the great session. Shall we expect to receive the slide by email? So yeah, we could do that. I think the idea is to make it also available, but we have the list of people that attended, so we can do a short email to you with the slide attached to it. So it's something possible. We can do that. And I think that's all the question. If anyone else has any other question, if Monica, you want to add something, or Azadeh?
Nothing from my end. Thank you very much for inviting me to that session.
Pleasure. Azadeh, anything from you?
No, thank you, everyone. But as you mentioned already, I just want to add that except that this presentation will be available on the websites, there are some guidance documents that mentioned at the end of this presentation, and those will be about location ID, dispute, and payment status. That those are available on SIS website as well.
Yeah, we try always to do some guideline when you can see how to do some setups. Like for example, when an airport is migrating, is also sending to the station manager how to set up the location ID. So that means that there is an information that is dispatched, and we try to make it more documentation, but short presentation that is related to a specific needs. So you will have more documentation than just one big book with everything on it. So I would like to thank Azadeh for preparing all this slide and to spend a lot of time on that, and also Monica, because to deliver a webcast like this that lasts for 1 hour. And we had to do a lot of training, practicing, aligning. And also I want to thank Christine for help in that. And with that last word, I want to wish you a great day, and I will close the webinar. Have a great day. Bye-bye.